I'll start that sentence again, I guess. I'm Daniel. I have been working as an Agile coach for about 7 years, working with different teams in different stages. And in the last couple of years, I've been increasingly interested in cognitive science and what that can teach us about how to build really effective teams. So I'm going to share a sort of overall introduction to cognitive science, a very light one this evening. And then I'm going to share a framework that comes from that, like a really specific one. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time chewing on that. It's like quite a simple idea, but it's got wide applicability. And I really think it has the ability to change the way you think about knowledge and skills in your teams. So it's going to be quite an interactive session. There's going to be quite a lot of going out into breakout rooms and talking to people and thinking through these ideas and coming back together and things like that. So if you have questions as you go, I'm happy for you to just interrupt me, because probably if you have a question, someone else has a question. And, if you feel more comfortable putting it in the chat, and that's fine as well. But otherwise, take yourself off mute and say, Daniel, I have a question, or I didn't understand something as well. I'm going to use some Google Slides. So that's where I'm going to have the main sort of content. And then we're going to go to a Miro board for the actual discussion-y bits. So let me share. Let me share everyone in meeting. Let me share the Miro board for when we get there. But to start off with, I'm just going to ask you one big question, which I promise is relevant. And that question is, how many ways are there to make toast? So I'm going to send you off into your breakout rooms. There's 24 of us, so let's do like 6 breakout rooms, if that's okay. Imran, I think you were looking after the breakout rooms. Or maybe let's do 5, because I think a handful of us are sort of organizers as well. When you're in your room, what I'd like you to do is go to this bit on the left. There's a sort of how many ways are there to make toast. Just say your name to each other and maybe like a word about where you're calling from. I'd like you to share a big problem you're facing at work, or not everyone is at work. So somewhere else, a big relevant problem to your life that you'd like to think about this evening. Put that in a yellow post-it. And then until the time runs out, and we're going to put 6 minutes on the clock total. Think about how many ways there are to make toast and write them down with these pink post-its. So just go round one at a time in the room until you start sort of running dry, but really push yourself. These don't have to be practical. These don't have to be reasonable, just ways that would get toast. Does anyone have any questions about those instructions for the first set of rooms? You'll be split into like breakout rooms, and then go to the rectangle that relates to the room number, just to be very clear there. All right. That was the last moment to ask a question while we're still in the room together. In which case, if we're ready with the breakout rooms, let's send everyone away and let's put 6 minutes on the clock.
And you're back over to you.
Great. Learning about barbecue and all its varieties is never a detraction. So thank you. Right. Welcome everyone back to the space. I could see, there was some great conversation going on. Some people got like totally into the problems and were sort of sharing with each other. Some people went straight into the toast making. I was referred to at least once as the Toastmaster, and I highly approve. Would anybody like to share the most extravagant, unexpected, and impractical way of making toast that they came across in their room?
Yeah, I'm in for room 2. I think, sorry, Beth just beat you to it. Beth came up with the idea of trying to use an exhaust pipe on the car, or an engine for the car, or maybe some Fast and Furious style exhaust pipes or flames that come out of the car. But we also had a flamethrower, so pretty much one and the same.
Brilliant. Any others?
So in room 4, we also had flamethrower, but then I went really extreme. Buy land, grow wheat, sell to a middleman, get Warburtons to make the bread, sell it to a customer who wants toast.
Nice. Occupy the whole space. Love that. Brilliant. And did anyone have like any boring ways of making toast that you've used before?
Toaster.
Nice, yeah, toaster. Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Or I saw someone put grill. That was interesting. You're going to see why we're spending so much time on toast shortly. So just keep the faith. Nice. And in terms of let's get a flavor of a couple of the problems that people are bringing to this session. So ideally, someone that hasn't answered a question yet.
Stakeholder buy-in.
Cool. Succinct. Love it. Thanks, Timothy.
Yes,
Anyone else?
I've got one. Yeah, so hopefully you can hear me. So my one is around refinement, which perhaps it isn't a problem, but to me it is. And the refinement is taking 25, 30 minutes to refine a single story. I think that's too long. The lead dev doesn't. So it's a problem in that we disagree.
Brilliant. Let's get one more problem statement from someone.
Yep, I can
go on, Lindsay.
Problem with my they would describe themselves as QA engineers, but actually all they want to do is write very small tests, and I need them to step up and back and educate people on the whole role of quality. I see testing does not equal quality. Yeah. So we're having a bit of a discussion there. They're very resistant, I would suggest.
Beautiful. Thanks for that, Lindsay. All right. Some great examples there. So I'm going to share. Can anyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wonderful. So the question is, what does making toast have to do with an agile team? I didn't make this, AI made this. If you get a moment, have a look at all the weird inconsistencies. Like this girl doesn't have any eye. And whose legs are they? But why are we talking about toast and Scrum and Agile and all these things together? So what I'd like to introduce to you this evening is the idea of cognitive science being the study of mind and intelligence, and it covers both toast making and agility equally. So we come to like different problems of human experience, like how do our minds work? How does thinking happen? What is intelligence? What is wisdom? How do we make meaning? And cognitive science is the sort of interdisciplinary study between all these different fields that together teach each other and teach us and teach the cognitive scientists some of the answers to these questions. So I'll just sort of run around these different domains. So philosophy is, really concerned with like definitions and arguments and sort of a certain sort of logical tightness, which you really need if you're talking about really loose and easily misconstrued concepts like intelligence and things like that. So you need a sort of philosophical angle. Psychology is part of it, right? What does the study of human experience have to teach us about human experience and the phenomenons that we experience in our minds? Artificial intelligence is trying to make minds. So in the process of doing that, we've learned a lot about mind and about intelligence. So there's findings in that world that can play into this as well. Neuroscience, the neuronal brain chemistry body level as well. Those play into our intelligence. Anthropology is how is meaning made by groups and by our culture. And that also will layer into our meaning making, our intelligence. And linguistics, like how does language impact there? So a philosophical question might be, at what point does bread become toast, right? How brown does it have to be? Or does it have to just exit the toaster? If I put it in the toaster, but it doesn't actually go crispy, is it toast or is it still bread? That might be a question that a philosopher might ask. Psychology, like how do you feel about that bread? What's happening in your learning patterns that might help you get the toast in the toaster, or that might help you choose your method? Artificial intelligence would be like, how would an AI advise you to make bread? I asked an AI, I forgot to find the screen grab. I'm not going to mess around with it now. But AI makes lots of assumptions, like put it in the oven, put it under the grill. And AI doesn't know how I want to make toast. So it sort of has its own pattern there. Neuroscience is, what do my dopamine and my hypothalamus and my hippocampus have to do with my toast making? Well, my hippocampus might have stored procedures about learning where I've learned how to do it in the past, and dopamine might help me get out the door to go and buy some bread. Anthropology, well, when I say if I'm going to make toast with a topping in Britain, that might be beans. And in Sweden, that might be some sort of, I don't know, fish thing. I should have come up with a more specific example there rather than just like sharing my very basic idea of what Swedish people eat. Apologies to any Swedes. But you know what I mean? That we might have different cultural understandings of the role of when do I eat toast? What is toast for? If I say make toast for my grandmother, that might be very different from make toast for my eggs or make soldiers, which might not have any relevance at all to someone from a completely different country that doesn't understand that toast can be soldiers, that kind of thing. So this is all part of our meaning making and our thinking and linguistics, right? What words do we use for toast? How does that impact the way that we think about it? You know, you can imagine a language where there are hundreds of words for toast, and toast is like the most revered thing, and different stages of toast have their own different separate words, and they would have people who have a language like that might have a very different experience of can you make me some toast than someone who has just one word, toast. If you need, I can say the word toast again, but I hope you're getting the idea. So cognitive science is this really like rich and interesting area. And part of my hypothesis and what's interested me over the last couple of years has been these domains, and this domain of cognitive science teaches us about intelligence and about problem solving. And when we're thinking about our agile teams, we are thinking about a kind of intelligence and a kind of problem solving. We are thinking about this both at the individual level, right? So what is going on in the brain of one developer and what is going on in the language that they might use to describe something. But we're also thinking of a kind of team intelligence or organizational intelligence, right? So as one human, I need to do certain cognitive maneuvers in order to be able to narrow down the options available to me to make toast. As a team, they need to do all sorts of cognitive maneuvers between them to narrow down the options available to them to make software or to make products or to release some campaign or whatever your team is doing. And a lot of the problems that we face with our teams, they're focusing too much on something that's not yielding results, or they're getting bogged down in details, or they're not executing plans quickly, or they're not sharing knowledge well. These are cognition problems. And therefore, what happens if we bring cognitive science to bear on trying to solve them? And that's the question that I've been interested in the last couple of years. So I'm going to share one little snippet of that with us today. So this is 4 Ps. And we're going to be talking about the 4 Ps of knowledge. I wanted to have the worst possible joke, and I think that is it. So it goes like this. There's a professor at the University of Toronto called John Vervaeke, who has a podcast called Awakening from the Meaning Crisis and a bunch of written articles about this, where he sums up modern cognitive science in what he calls this 4P model. Okay, so the stuff I just mentioned is quite abstract. It's all different fields and stuff like that. And what I'm going to try and get across is this 4P model. That's just one way of thinking about cognition. As I do this, if I say something that doesn't make sense, please question and ask me about it. Part of me explaining these ideas and coming about them is trying to learn how to communicate them to people that haven't been as nerdy about cognitive science as I have. So please help me do that well by telling me if you don't understand something I've said. So when I talk about knowledge, or when we think about knowledge, there are different kinds of knowledge available to us. Blah, 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 blah. I've managed to, yeah. You might think of knowledge in terms of propositions, right? Knowledge that. So can someone in the chat like give me an example of a piece of knowledge, a fact that you might know? This is going to start really basic, but a fact that you would consider knowledge that you have. I am alive. Okay, so brilliant.
The Battle of Hastings was in 1066.
Brilliant. The Battle of Hastings is in 1066. Water freezes at 0. Great. Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister. These things are facts. We know them through sort of scientific methods. These are timeless in a certain way. Like Rishi Sunak is Prime Minister right now is a fact that is. I didn't have to learn how to understand that And I manipulate that knowledge in a certain kind of way. I'm being really like weird and vague about this because it's going to be in contrast to other kinds of knowledge that are going to come later. So when I go on to, so I'm going to give you a non-toast example. So knowledge that is like knowledge that a cat is a mammal, or that a cat has fur, or that a Siamese is a type of cat, something like that. When we think about knowledge that, when we think about propositional knowledge, there are certain ways that we acquire it through like learning facts and reciting things and storing them in our memory and keeping them available to us. You might remember the time that you learned that, that a cat is a mammal, like a specific time where that entered your mind. So part of what we're going to explore this evening is the way in which our assumptions about knowledge treat everything as if it's propositional knowledge. We sort of bias like facts as if they're the only useful knowledge available to us. So if I want to teach my team something, I need to teach it in the way that's facts, and the only thing that's relevant there is science and stuff like that. But there are other kinds. And in order to have the relevant propositional knowledge for the problems I'm facing, I need to be engaged in some sort of activity. I need to have what's called procedural knowledge. Okay, so I put a picture of a piano there. So knowing how to play the piano is not the same as knowing that a piano has keys on it. Knowing how to play the piano is not the same as knowing the names of all the keys, or knowing all the names of all the notes, or knowing sort of the knowledge of how all the different elements interact with each other. Knowing how to play the piano is something that I learn in my body. It's a motor skill. It's a sense of timing, and it has a different kind of knowledge to a fact. So know-how is, procedural knowledge gives you know-how, and it's to do with skills, right? So for example, knowing how to stroke a cat in a way that the cat likes. And as we go up, we're going to say like the things below depend on the things above them in some way. So knowing that a cat is a mammal might be relevant to my stroking of it, right? So I want to stroke this cat and it looks soft and nice, and then I know that a cat's teeth are sharp. So if it shows up to me, I should beware. So the way we teach procedural knowledge, with the way we teach skills, is different to the way we teach facts, right? How do we teach procedural knowledge?
By doing?
By doing, right? Or like some sort of practice. Try it, you get some feedback, and you hone a skill, okay? One of the big bugbears I have is when we go into a training room and I try and teach you a skill by treating it as if it was a fact. So I tell you all the facts about the skill, and I say, this is how you do QA testing. And here are all the frameworks you need to know. And here's the triangle of blah, blah, blah. And here's the names of all the languages. And now you know how to be a QA tester, right? Whereas actually to be a QA tester, you need to have a kind of procedural knowledge, right? And some of the knowledge is above it. You need to know how to write the test. You need to know how to zoom in at the right level. You need to know how to engage with other developers in a way that lets them, that puts quality on the agenda or something like that. The question is, which skills do we use? So that comes into the knowledge that sits above that, which is called a perspectival knowledge. So it's knowledge of a perspective. What's it like to be me right now looking at the world? So I am currently like looking out onto my lounge. I can see the plants and the TV in front of me, and I've got certain things that are available to me right now. My laptop is incredibly salient. So salience, it means it's like it stands out to me. It's important to me right now. So if my plant starts just like wobbling or something, because it's not really involved in what I'm doing right now, it's not going to be as important to me as if my computer starts wobbling or starts breaking or something like that. So I have a perspective that is like an outlook on the world that makes certain things important to me right now. For example, I know that I am from the perspective of looking at this screen in this moment, teaching, sharing this knowledge. That will give me access to certain procedures that I need to do, right? So like explaining myself and talking and being slow and smiling or things like that, which will then bring relevant certain propositions that I need to bring to bear, right? So I need to now for example, all the facts that are present here, all the ideas that are present here might be the propositions that I use. Okay. So a perspective on a cat might be, I see a cat that is like all sort of got its hackles up, and I see the like the fear signs there, and all of a sudden I have a perspective on like I'm in danger here, or this cat is afraid of me, or something like that. And then that might make me want to run, or it might make me want to call someone, or it might make me access other procedures, or it might make me want to try and calm it down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions at this point?
Is it like awareness?
Say more. Can you elaborate on that question?
Yes, it feels like awareness. So we are aware of ourselves. It's like it's a perception, right? So we are aware of ourselves, and we see the world with our eyes, and we are aware of something that is happening in front of us. Right, we see the situation, we are aware of it, that is in front of our eyes. Like you looking at your laptop, you are aware or self-aware when you're thinking on what you want to say, etc. Could it be simplified in just a little bit in that way? Okay, perspective. I mean, it does speak of a perspective, but if it's us connected to something around us,
third eye stuff. So first eye, second eye, third eye, yeah?
Well, no, in this case, one or two, or yeah, maybe it could be just our awareness regarding it. It requires cognition, right? We need to think about it.
Yeah, well, awareness is a great way of thinking about it, and up to and including 3 eyes is the right amount of eyes for thinking about that from a sort of visual perspective. So there's visual perspective is one type. What does the world look like from my point of view? And that's a different kind of knowledge from if I go and stand on the other side of the room and look at the world from the other side.
But it's awareness no matter what. Is it our senses or our inner sense, or third eye, as Lindsay said?
Yeah, exactly. And also this stuff, it sort of goes more abstract into if you're looking at a problem, right? Let's say you're looking at a bit of software, then the perspective of a QA tester will be different from the perspective of a developer, which will be different from the perspective of a user. And those are different kinds of knowledge and things like that.
That helps. Thank you.
Yeah. So a QA tester might look at a piece of software and go, look at all those wonderful things I can break. And a developer might look at it and go, look at all those wonderful things that I've built. And a tester and a user might go, look at this irrelevant thing that I don't want. And the Agile coach might go, look at my day rate. So these are all kinds of perspective that make certain elements of the problem or the situation salient, and therefore give you different kinds of procedural knowledge and allow you to choose the right propositions. Okay. The final one, and then we're going to go into breakout rooms and talk about this stuff, because me, lecturing about it is maybe interesting, but it's much more useful to like sink our teeth into it. It's called participatory knowledge. So this is one level up the dependence sort of landscape from perspectival knowledge, which is how do I participate in the world around me? So John Vervaeke talks about this agent-arena relationship. There's this I am in the world in a way that I can access certain things due to my role, due to my biology, due to the forces around me. So an example is like this cup. The way that my biology works and the way that physics works, this cup is graspable to me. The cup isn't fundamentally graspable. If there was nothing in the world with hands, this cup would just be a sort of round thing, and the concept of grasping wouldn't exist. So you could say that like the arena is the world around me and I am the agent, and between us we have this participation called grasping, right? Equally, my chair has what's called an affordance. An affordance is like something that you can use in the environment. My chair affords sitting. My being in a meeting affords interrupting people. These are all ways in which I can interact with my environment around me. And it sort of boils down to what's the role. So, for example, with the cat, whether you see the cat as like scared or happy, well, it will change depending on whether you're participating in the world as a vet or as an owner or as a policeman or something. You'll have different sort of affordances available to you from those different participations. So let's say I'm a vet, I would look at this cat and go, right, I see that it's looking a bit ill. I recognize that as a picture of a dog now that I think about it, but that's fine. This cat is a dog. Oh my God. So I might look at the cat and say, oh, its temperature is up or its teeth don't look so good. And that's a kind of affordance for maybe I should give it some medicine. And I might then look with my perspectives and go, let's look at the angle of like dental health of this cat, or let's look at the perspective of how could we increase its life, or how could we put it out if it's suffering, if it's in a certain state. And then that will give me access to certain procedures, right? Administer the medicine or do the surgery, and then I will bring certain propositions like this is what's true about the biology of a cat. That's very different from how an owner might participate in that experience. They might say, I noticed that my cat is looking like a dog. I might notice that my cat is acting a bit weird. The affordances that I have there are like noticing its behavior. I know that I can bring it to the vet. My perspective will be that of like trying to get help and trying to ask for advice. That will give me the procedures of learning about the cat. That will give me the procedures of sitting patiently in the waiting room, chewing my nails. And that might give me the propositions of, this is how much medicine to give my cat afterwards or something like that. So the idea is for like all of our cognition, you can relate parts of our experience to this hierarchy or to this set of different types of knowledge, and start to ask yourself, like, what am I missing here, right? So if I've got the wrong propositions, I've got a different problem to if I've got the wrong perspective, right? So Lindsay, you shared earlier with the QA testers, right? Why don't we like run through like the QA testers through this sort of chain? Do you want to have a go at that? You're gonna, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Make you regret speaking up. But let's have a go and see if we can do it together. What kind of propositions are they using?
Can I go ahead? Sorry, I cannot find
Please.
the yeah, okay. I'm just summarizing my understanding here because I am more familiar with this QA and development scenario. So let's say perspective knowledge, like you mentioned, if as a QA, they know the process that as a QA tester, what I'm supposed to do using some skills, and developers, they make some beautiful things using some UI skills. And as an agile coach, I have some facilitation skills so that I can run the meetings. So that would be a perspective knowledge. But I am little struggling to understand procedural knowledge and propositional knowledge, because procedural knowledge for me, it would be I am using some sort of skills to execute my knowledge. However, propositional knowledge, I'm not understanding completely the difference between these two. Yeah.
Okay, so let's run it down like from the top and let's see what that lets us do. So let's say the participatory knowledge, right, is like the role of a QA. I'm a QA tester, right? I am coming to work and I'm putting on my QA tester uniform and my special hat and my bell, and I am coming to work to do QA testing, right? That is the affordances available to me are those that increase the quality of the product. Okay, so that's I am participating differently to a developer who comes in saying my job is to build stuff. Okay, so that gives me a certain set of perspectives that are available to me. So what might those perspectives be on a piece of software? Question for the room.
They're trying to break it.
Yeah, that box you've entered, I wonder what happens if I put some SQL in it. I look at that box and I go, that looks like a vulnerability. That's a perspective on that box, right? If I look at some formatting or something, I might go, well, let's see if I run it on Windows 10.
What happens if I, yeah.
So that will make certain elements of the thing they're working at salient. Similarly, those perspectives might come to the meetings as well, right? I'm a tester here, so my job is to not have any ideas, right? My job is to just to test the stuff that happens, right? And this is where we can use this model as a way of expanding our thinking, right? My job, my role is a tester. My perspectives are only really supposed to be those to do with breaking the software and suggesting bug fixes, right? Or suggesting where the bugs are. Okay. Oh, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to use some skills that are relevant to those perspectives, right? So the skills that I'll use to exploit that box is I'm going to write some SQL and see if that breaks the database. Or I'm going to use the skill of running this software on Windows 2 and Windows 95 and seeing if it breaks. So I'm going to use the skill of adding acceptance criteria in the tickets. Okay, these are all skills that are relevant. And then I'm going to use certain facts that are relevant to that in order to carry out those skills. So what kind of facts might be relevant to those skills?
Send speed. Yeah.
What send speed?
Is that a fact? Send speed.
Can someone else think of an example of a piece of a propositional knowledge or a fact that might be relevant to one of those QA tester skills?
They understand the product better? No.
So I'm thinking, like, if I'm a tester and I'm carrying out a skill, my ability to carry out that skill will be dependent on some knowledge, some things. You've got
Code coverage.
Beth. Go on, Beth,
Database.
and then go back to me.
Rational. How
Go
to
on,
use
Beth.
an iPhone, how to use a Samsung, what like browser is being tested. So I know that this product should run on Firefox. Have I downloaded that? Do I know how to install it?
Yeah. So I'd say those are procedures, right? Like how, because if you're saying like it's how to use an iPhone, how to use an Android, how to use Cucumber, that's know-how. But what's the proposition there? Like there is a thing called an Apple computer. That's a fact, right?
Okay.
Test coverage.
So go on. How does test coverage answer the question?
That's a fact. So based upon the coverage, you would do more or less, or I'm done. It's got full coverage, or no coverage. I need to do more.
Yeah. So like the test coverage, like the test coverage is 99%. That's a fact that's relevant to your skill of increasing the test coverage, right? Also, there'll be like a ton of facts available. There are a ton of propositional knowledge things like test coverage is, and the definition of test coverage, that would be a fact. The definition of tests, the definition of code, the name of the software we're using. These are all be facts that are relevant to carrying out those skills, to fulfilling those, carrying out those perspectives, to fulfilling those roles. However, it sounded like the problem you had, Lindsay, was the QAs are limiting what they're doing to my job here is to write tests, whereas what you want is for them to help with quality.
They are very, very, very good at what they do. They're brilliant at what they do. And I would like them to expand and be very good at that as well. Yeah.
So which kind of knowledge do you think they're missing here of these four?
Procedural.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
I think, so if you think of the holistic testing infinity loop, I think they concentrate on a segment of it, and I want them to look at the rest of it. And I think that's know-how and skills.
So they don't know how to coach the...
Yeah.
Right. And what happens if we go up a level as well? What perspectives would they need to have that would allow them to use those skills of coaching?
They would... Now, I think they've got some of those, because I think they would need to think from the different perspectives you were talking about earlier. So I think that they need to put themselves in the the shoes, the seat, whatever, of the customer, of our internal groups who use the product. And I think they do some of that, but I think they could do more. But I think they are starting there. And I think they do that very well as well. So I think they've got some of that already.
Okay.
If I understood you correctly.
Yeah. So like one thing that I was thinking, and it might not be true of the situation you described, but one thing I was thinking was maybe they have the perspective of like, my job is I'm a tester, right? My participatory knowledge, I know that I'm a tester and I'm a QA. My perspective means that the perspective I have is everything is a test waiting to be written. Right? So everything with my job is, a test-shaped problem, and therefore everything that I need to do to solve it is a test. So I'll use the procedures of how to write different types of tests, and then I'll use all the propositions that allow me to do that. But there's another perspective that you want your QAs to have, which is how is this how is the system producing quality? Right? How are the developers thinking about their code and the acceptance criteria in a way that allows them to build quality to begin with? And that's not a test-shaped problem. That is a human system-shaped problem. That is like wanting your QAs to understand how do the developers like understand the problem, and how do they understand the constraints, and how do they get that the knowledge that the testers have, how do they get that into the developers' heads? So the perspective of a QA in that world might be, I need a different kind of perspectival knowledge, which is how to help developers get better at thinking about quality.
Yeah.
So that's a different kind of perspectival knowledge that they could be missing. And if my perspective is the way that I interface with this problem is this is a coaching problem, or this is a human systems problem, that will require me to bring different kinds of procedural knowledge in order to meet that. I'll need to learn some coaching skills. I'll need to learn how to do some public speaking. I'll need to learn how to write good presentations or whatever. There's probably terrible ways of teaching it, but you know what I mean? I'll need to learn how to sit alongside someone and teach them how to do a thing. And then I might need to learn some different propositions as a result of that. I might need to rejig the ones that I already have to make it make sense, right? Then I might start getting into, I don't know, different kinds of like mentoring model, or just the things that you need to be an effective teacher. And that's a very different kind of thing from sitting down and writing the tests.
That's really helpful, actually. Thank you. Yeah.
So then it means that as a coach, my thinking is, if we take the problems that we face and we run them through this thing, through this, I need to think of a better name for it than this thing, the 4 Ps. This model, great, thank you. This 4P model, can you tell I'm new at this? That we can open up different opportunities to make change. We can do it for ourselves as well, right? I have this team, and there's a problem with, so we had an idea of, someone mentioned earlier, refinement meetings taking too long. At this point, I'm going to ask, do we want to go away and break and chat about these things yourselves in rooms, or do you want to spend more time in the group together? I'm tempted to go through one more example and then send you out into your rooms, but that sound all right? I'm going to do that, and then if you hate it, then you can give me eviscerating feedback.
Let's time box it.
Great.
You have 2 minutes for another example.
Nice, I'm in. All right. So remind me who it was that said the problem about the refinement?
It was me, Andy.
Okay. So Andy, you mentioned that the refinement was taking half an hour, and you think it should be shorter, and the lead developer thinks that's fine. Is that right? Is that about right?
Yeah, one story took half an hour, and he was fine with that.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we could run the 4 kinds of knowledge like for yourself here, and let's see what that looks like. I don't know anything about the situation or about you, Andy, so I'll like suggest some stuff, and like it's not gonna don't take it personally, because I don't know you, or I don't know the situation. So so we might say like participatory knowledge here, right? Like what is my role? What is my role here? So maybe agile coach, but also maybe like mentor, don't know, maybe provocateur. Agile coaches try on different kinds of roles, right? So sometimes we're a teacher, sometimes we're a mentor, sometimes we're a coach. Might be worth thinking about which roles we bring to these kind of problems. That might give me different. Go on.
Well, also a student, I want to understand the lead dev's thinking to see, because he might well be right. Maybe 25 minutes, 30 minutes for one story is fine. So
beautiful. Yeah.
So lots of different participatory kind of roles for myself as a Scrum Master.
Brilliant. So let's say so as a student, right? If my role is student and my affordances are those of a student, then my perspective is like, what can I learn from this, right? Everything that comes up is a learning opportunity for you, right? What's going on here? Like, why is it taking so long? What are the facts that are available to me there? Like, what you sit there with a very different mindset, which then makes certain things about the situation salient to you because you're there to learn it. That might then, in order to do that well, you might need to bring in certain skills, like asking good questions or visualizing stuff or feeding back what you're seeing in a way that's not like threatening to anyone. Those are skills. And then your propositional knowledge that will rely on that would be...
People are hard to work with. Your time is up.
Thanks. Oh, well, let's run through one more like participatory example within that example, and then I'm going to send you off to your things. But the time boxing is helpful. I appreciate it. So then if you go into that situation, not as a student, but as a... Give me another...
Well, if I went and as a coach, I've got some ideas that I would like to suggest and discuss with the lead dev.
Okay, so what perspectives might come from that?
With. Yeah, it's a perspective of having worked with other teams where, to my mind, the refinements seem much more effective, much more better value, and had good outcomes without spending such a long time on this particular, regularly spending 25, 30 minutes on a single story.
Brilliant. And then what might become like salient to you is other teams in your memory who took less time and it was good. Right. So you might come in with like, I'm an experienced hand and that's my participation. And therefore my perspectives will be, I've got a perspective of knowing that like it worked well to try and reduce the time in the past. And therefore I'm going to try and reduce the time here. The procedures then that I do that will be to try and teach them a bit about quick meetings or time boxing. I realize I'm talking about teaching time boxing while I'm over my time box, but forgive me. And then the propositions that come up with that might be like something to do with, I don't know, simple stuff like numbers and how you could use time boxing or like what a time box is or the definition of a time box, or you might know of the names of different kinds of technology that you could use that would help support that. Something like that. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is helpful to think about it.
All right. It's going to be so helpful that it's time for me to send you to the Miro sphere. I'm going to make one pitch before we go because I know we're like an hour in and people might start dropping off. So I'm going to do the completely outrageous thing, which is to ask that if you like this and you need to leave before I have a chance to pitch this to you at the end, I'm blogging about this stuff. And if you look on the right, there is a bit that has a link to my Substack. So if you like this and you're interested in more, go and do that. Right, that was shameful self-promotion. Can we put people back in the same rooms that they were in before? And I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to show you what we're looking at.
Why do we need to be in the same rooms?
Oh, good question. I was thinking because you've already explained your problems to each other, so we already have a sort of starting point.
Except, Dan, it might be a bit difficult because we don't have a list of all the people that were in the previous rooms.
In which case, let's put people in random rooms and it'll be fine.
They are, Zoom allows that. So they are already part of the room. Otherwise, I'll need to recreate them.
In which case, let's put them in whatever rooms come out. And if that is like mostly the same as the ones we were in before, and maybe for the last activity, I'll get you to do something a bit more mixed. How many, do we have a different number of people to how many we had before?
Yeah, we have.
We're 24. Now we have
20.
20.
Brilliant. So let's do like 5 rooms there.
Let's just work with what we have. It's okay. We're going to find a way. Let's be curious. It's an experiment.
Let's
see what we get.
Let's do Oh, I think I want to do 20 minutes here, because what I want you to do is in your room, go through each person's big problem, right? Maybe just like re-clarify what it is or explain it for the first time if you're in a new room. You start either, it was kind of more helpful to start with the participatory knowledge, wasn't it? So maybe try some that start with the propositions, go, hang on, what propositions, what facts am I thinking are relevant, and then work your way up. Or if you fancy it, start with the participatory stuff and work your way down. And just the question here is, by analyzing the situation with this model, what opportunities come up for you to try something different, or what inflection points do you see that might make it easier for you to solve your problem? Okay. And I want us to, you guys are going to be responsible within your own rooms for the time boxing. So we'll do 5 minutes max per person, just to make sure everyone gets a chance to go round. If you're 3 of you in your room and we've got 20 minutes, then you can do 6 point whatever minutes per person. But you're in charge of making sure that everyone has enough time to talk and enforcing that. Okay, so help each other with this analysis, and we'll see you at 37 past back here. Any questions about what I've asked you to do? Let's make it happen. Alrighty, what I would like to do is just run through the rooms, and if you could just share, someone step forward and just like share a flavor of something interesting that came up in your rooms, whether it was like an insight into one of your problems, or whether it was a difficulty that you faced in trying to like use this model, or something like that, or just something that gives us a flavor of what happened in your breakout room. So I'm going to ask breakout room 1 to kick us off. And I'm going to be quite, we've only got sort of 10, 15 minutes left of this bit. So I'm going to say if you can keep it to like 2 minutes or so, or even less, that would be great. So yeah, does someone from breakout room 1 want to tell us a little bit about their room?
I can try and summarize it. Thank you for everybody who spoke. So it was largely based upon showing the value of the process, and trying to sell it based on the merits that mean something to the perspective or the participatory role that was there. And so kind of looking at it from that other role to say, well, actually, how can you sell it to them with something that they'll want? And so we, being part of it, will see the value and highlight the importance of the process.
Great. Cool, thank you. I just shared a link to, there's a couple people dropping off, so I'm going to give one last link for people to have an opportunity to hear more. Thanks, Timothy. Someone from room 2.
We found that a lot of it does come back to perspective. You know your facts, they know their facts, but what I've got going on in my world and my priorities are different to someone else's, and we had a big discussion around finding the common ground, the common objectives, having a direction that all of the participants in each of their roles can use all of their procedures to kind of point towards, and it be more comfortable for people, whether that's meetings taking too long or selling solutions over trying to solve problems for clients and things like that. Propositional, it was really hard to get down to the facts. The facts are the facts, and how granular do you go with that? But I think ultimately for us it felt a lot like there was a lot in the perspective space.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because then when you realize that there's stuff to do with the perspective space, then it gives you different tools to be able to try and solve that, right? So if you start telling people about perspectives as if they were facts, as if they were propositions, let's do a presentation on everyone's perspective. Well, that's not maybe the best way to get it across, but there's different ways you can help people role play each other's activities, or different sort of dialogue tools that might help one person see things or articulate something from someone else's perspective, and things like that. Yeah, thanks, Beth. We've got a couple of questions. Maybe let's run to those, and then let's go to room 3 and 4 and 5. So we've got one from Emily, which is, does the perspectival knowledge also include things like being a woman in the workplace means I have certain perspective, or I had a bad experience with this person before, so my perspective is skewed by that, or I'm an introvert or an extrovert type of perspectives. Sorry if my internet connection is really bad. That's all right. So my take on that would be those kind of things, yeah, would fit in different places in the model, right? So maybe for some people, like the idea of like, I'm a woman in the workplace, that might even be a participatory question, right? That's like a role that I play, or that affects or impacts my roles in some way, or it might make certain perspectives available to me. That might therefore like makes, yeah, certain perspectives and certain skills within those available. Introvert, extrovert, also, yeah, they could be perspectives. It depends how you want to see those things. I think they could play into any of those elements. It's worth plugging those into the model and seeing like what comes sort of downstream from there. I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah, I think all these kind of ways in which we experience our workplaces can come in. And Yelena, or Jelena.
Yeah, I actually wondered because Beth said it's great, and there is a huge connection between our auto-perception, like I say, auto-awareness, and participation, because you are an introvert, but it doesn't matter until you get into participation, until you compare with someone who is not. Your self-awareness is not good or bad. You are what you are. You see yourself, but there is nothing to hold this against you. When you get into the participatory part, then it becomes important because you hold it against something else. It's you in the environment. And I think this is also what you said, that you were talking about that animal. Oh, but this also touches the participatory. It's like, I think we have a lot of those who mix, because yeah, we think something. It's like when we do a retro, what everyone thinks about that, and everyone puts their individual things, but then we talk about it because it has a context in the ecosystem, and then okay, what are we going to do about it? We also skew our positions, etc., all the time, because no man is an island, right? So thank you, Beth.
Yeah, it's a really nice point. And also, like, if we're in a retro, we go, what do people think about that, right? Well, what do we think? We think propositions, right? So if you think this thing about the sprint and I think something else, or one of us, I might assume one of us might be wrong, right? Or yeah, we have contradictory opinions here, but like we can live with the idea that one of us, whatever.
Don't mud the water with assumptions. This is what we've been talking about. One is fact, one is assumption. So is assumption a procedural thing? If we assume something, does it make it a fact?
That's a good question. So yeah, treating something as an assumption treats it like it's a fact that we haven't proven yet. Whereas what if we treat an assumption as a perspective, right? And then I say, so let me finish the thing and say if you still think it's shit. Like, what if I ask the retro question, not what do people think about this, what facts do you think, but what do people know about this, right? Like what you, from your perspective, you know something about the sprint that someone else doesn't know. It might make assertions that someone else would disagree with, but if you go, our planning was terrible, then you are expressing a kind of knowledge that you have, a perspectival knowledge on the sprint. And if someone else goes, well, that's not true, that's not, I had a great sprint and the planning was amazing, then we're arguing about propositions, and that's the wrong level. Really, we should be saying, wow, what is it in your perspective, what do you know from your perspectival knowledge that I don't know, that I need to know in order to make your sprint less shit? Is that still shit, or is that
No, I was just being rude with the joke that if we treat assumptions as fact, we are in problems. But what you said makes a lot of sense. It's actually a very nice thing to say. What do you know for a fact without assumptions comparing to what you feel? So yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. And that's why I like this model, because it treats all the different elements of it like they are different kinds of knowledge, right? Rather than facts that we can argue about. Because if I say Rishi Sunak's the Prime Minister and someone else goes Boris Johnson's the Prime Minister, well, one of us is wrong. Whereas if I go planning was good and the other one goes planning is bad, and we say those are two perspectives, that's a different, that those can both be correct. And that gives us a little bit more openness. Let's go to room 3.
Marwan has a question.
Marwan, take it away.
Just a one sentence remark. Yeah, thanks, guys. Daniel, what you explained about perspectival is exactly what people in psychology and in therapy and even professional coaching and neuro-linguistic programming refer to as constructivism, or that's a fundamental pillar of all these disciplines and their practice. Is constructivism, meaning that there is no such thing as facts, and trust me, I have a PhD in artificial intelligence. I know how that might sound. There is no such thing as facts. These facts for you, facts for me, my reality, your reality. So this perspectivism approach radically shifts any way you perceive any, disagreement or, just that's what I wanted to say. What you explain is exactly what we understand, what I've been taught as constructivism.
You, because what I didn't want was someone with a PhD in artificial intelligence to say that was lovely and none of it is coherent with any of the stuff I know. So yeah, that's really nice. Thank you, Marwan. Let's go to room 3 and then room 4, and then let's do a little bit of checking out and then let's leave.
I think
3?
I'm the only one left from room 3 now, I think.
Okay, so you hold the torch.
So 2 things. One was a lot of it was about the perspective, but the other thing that I certainly found interesting was we took a lot of time to decide what the problem was. And until we really dug into what the problem was, it was very hard to apply the model.
That makes a lot of sense. I think this probably needs a little bit more space than like, right, 5 minutes, go, because we need to really articulate, what is the...
No, sorry, not getting at the time boxing or anything like that, but we really needed to fully understand what it was we were going to talk about. And I think we went in thinking, oh yeah, this is my problem. That wasn't the problem at all. Yeah.
So was it the case that by trying to put it in this model, you like got deeper into the problem?
Yes.
Or you realized
it really helped. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's a nice, thing. Yeah, cool. Lovely. Room 4. Is anyone here from room 4?
Yeah. Well, in general, with the problem that I raised, one thing that Jonah pointed out for me was to gather more data to understand where the issue, what the issue basically is that why in a project that is cross teams, why is there sometimes communication between teams is fantastic when it comes to dependencies, and why other times is not. I mean, one of the issues that raises that they're under pressure, but when you think about it, like John pointed out, that it is not really so much the time, and that the pressure is the issue itself. It's why is it sometimes they are good and sometimes it's not, and to gather more data to understand that. So that's what I've taken away from it. That's what I've learned.
Nice. Thanks, Adash. Was there a room 5?
No.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to do one little thank you for that. I'm going to ask just for one last bit. How should we do this? So I'm going to just like share the little bit of Miro board. I wanted to give you an opportunity just to do a quick, I don't know if anyone's done the liberating structure, what, so what, now what, and you might be post-it noted out at this point, but this is just a lot of sort of reflection exercise to ask 3 questions. So what did you notice today, or what stood out to you? So like what was interesting? So you might say like, like Daniel's cup was, that example was really nice. So what? You're like, what does that mean? Why is that important? You go, that taught me this thing about affordances. And now what? You'd be like, oh, now I'm gonna like look for affordances in my landscape or something. I don't know. But it's an activity just to help you sort of reflect on what's going on there. So I'm gonna ask, well, I'm not gonna send you out to breakout rooms and to think about this again. But maybe we'll just spend 2 minutes or 3 minutes doing a what, so what, now what. If you get a moment before you leave, I would love some feedback on this session from the bottom. What did you like? What did you not like? Do you have any suggestions for me? Really, really helpful, whatever you can share, as candid, as brutal, as honest as possible. That really helps me run a better session. And in case I haven't mentioned it, I have a Substack, and it's over here on the right. And if you want to get more articles and thinking about this kind of stuff, you can find it there. So I'm tempted to hold space for a couple of minutes, and then we can I'll just like do a little scan at the end of what we've seen, and then we'll say thank you and bye. So let's do 2 minutes here with the what, so what, now what, and then as we're finishing off, you can maybe finish with some of the feedback. Alrighty, feel free to keep writing. So I'm going to just do a little scan of what we have here. So simplification and structure is helpful in problem solving. We should remind ourselves to simplify our thoughts and questions. It's nice. This stuff is not easy to get your head around in one go. Yeah, it's taken me a good few months to to get to be able to do it at all. It needs more time to process and do more reading. Great. Did I mention I have a Substack? Nice. What different perspectives and participatory roles are important? So what? These lead to difficulties in communication. Now, what ensure procedures allow perspectives to be communicated? Nice. Nice. That's a really good. Yeah, it opens up different tools available to you, right? Well, maybe I'll try this other facilitation method. What? There is no right way to make toast. So what? It doesn't matter how it's made. Now what? Oh, I didn't do the thing where I explained why I talked about toast so much. Yeah, you're gonna have to read my Substack because that's where I went into it. That's where I brought the example from.
Oh,
But
come on, we
way
have time. You cannot leave us
okay.
here.
Yeah.
Thank
Basically,
you.
making toast is an example of like a problem domain where our ability to understand those 4 Ps, it becomes really relevant, right? Like, what's my role here? Am I like chef? Or am I the eater of the toast? Therefore, what perspective do I take? You know, oh, the ease or the gluten-freeness of the toast might be a perspective I take. That gives me different procedural knowledge, right? Of shall I use the toaster? Shall I use the grill? Shall I make my own bread? Shall I plant my own wheat? And then that gives me different propositions that are available off of that. So, you know, Warburtons do a gluten-free bread is a proposition that I might use in my participation in making gluten-free toast. From my perspective of I'm aiming for gluten-free in my role as host of some gluten-free friends. That's why I got to toast. Even if overpriced. Right, lovely. I'm gonna at this point say thank you very much to Agile Northants for having me. It's really a pleasure to share these ideas with you this evening. Please give me as much feedback as you can at the bottom, and I'm going to hand back to Mohammed and Imran to close us off. So thank you very much.
Hi there, Jeff Watts here, and like me, I'm sure you loved that session because it's another example of becoming great at Agile. We're proud to sponsor Agile Northants here at Agile Mastery Institute because, like us, the people of Agile Northants know that mastery matters. And we're on a mission to make Agile certification meaningful. We want to change the paradigm so that when people think of Agile certification, they think of a pathway of actual, real, deep learning over time. Not just learning good practice, but reflecting on that practice and tailoring the learning to the context of the learner. So at Agile Mastery Institute, we don't just offer 2-day classes. We offer at least 6 months worth of support, a combination of classroom, of coaching sessions, and community support. So you know that you will get some great practice content and theory and skills development, but also you will be able to direct that learning through your bespoke coaching sessions over the course of at least 6 months. This will help you in your role, it'll help your employers, it'll help your teams, and it'll help regain respect for Agile certification throughout the industry. So if you believe Agile certification matters, then come along to one of our cohorts. We've got licensed guides around the world offering flexible programs over time zones and cadence. Check out agilemasteryinstitute.com for your options. If you've got any questions about any of it, how the pathways work, how it could work for you, how it could work for your organization, then just drop me a note and I'll happily explain more. But until then, keep on doing great Agile.